Choosing a Realme smartphone can be quite challenging these days. Now, the company has managed to cover pretty much every single price point under 20,000 rupees, but that also means that there's a ton of price overlap. Which brings us to this smartphone, the Realme 8. Now, with a starting price of 14,999, this can be seen as basically a slimmer version of the Realme 7 with an AMOLED display, which, if you remember, was very similar to the Realme 6 Pro itself with just a different SoC. Now, the top of the line variant of the Realme 8 that I have with me cost nearly 17,000 rupees, which also happens to be the starting price of Realme's own Narzo 30 Pro. Now, that phone has a 5G SoC, which is actually more powerful than the one in the Realme 8, and also a 120Hz display. So you can see how picking a Realme phone in this segment can be really challenging. So I guess the big question is, should you bother with the Realme 8? Hi, I'm Royden, you're watching Gadgets 360 and this is my review of the Realme 8. Before we go ahead, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't and also hit that bell icon so you're the first to know whenever we have a new video. The Realme 8's design is heavily focused on making it slim and light, and it does a very good job here. The all-plastic body helps it achieve a comfortable weight, but is also a bit of a letdown since the edges pick up scuff marks very easily. I'm not a big fan of this cyber silver color either, as the rainbow effect and the Dare to Leap slogan are a bit too jarring for my taste. But what I do like is the display. It's a 6.4-inch Super AMOLED panel with a Full HD Plus resolution rather than an LCD panel. It even has an in-display fingerprint sensor, which works well. Now, this is a big change compared to the Realme 7, but then you do sacrifice the 90Hz refresh rate that the Realme 7 offered. So you win some, you lose some. Now, while there's no mention of any reinforced glass for the Realme 8, Realme does tell us that it has used Dragon Trail glass for the display. Anyway, the display itself is nice with good contrast levels and adequate brightness even for outdoor use. The in-display fingerprint sensor is also very quick at authentication. In terms of specs, we have a MediaTek Helio G95 SoC, same as Realme 7, and this is paired with 3 RAM variants of 4GB, 6GB and 8GB. Now, the internal storage is 128GB across all variants. The Helio G95 has proven to be a good enough processor for gaming at this price level, so if it ain't broke, why fix it seems to be the motto here. You get Realme UI 2.0 out of the box, which is based on Android 11. As a matter of fact, the Realme 8 and the 8 Pro are one of the first Realme smartphones to ship with this. On the surface, it looks very similar to the previous version, but there are subtle design and animation changes. For instance, there's an upgraded icon customization menu, and you get all the security and privacy benefits that come with Android 11. But the sad thing is that it still hasn't shed any of the bloatware, and there's still a ton of third-party and redundant apps that come pre-installed. Now, you can uninstall most of the junk, but apps such as the browser, for example, is notorious for spamming you with unwanted notifications, and this cannot be removed. Nevertheless, the Realme 8 feels snappy. Multitasking is a breeze, apps are quick to load, and usage is generally very responsive. Although having a high refresh rate would have made the experience even better. Now, I didn't encounter any heating issues either, even when gaming for long stretches. Speaking of which, games did run very well and looked good on this display. The Realme 8 also delivers solid battery life. The 5000 mAh capacity easily lasted me for an entire day with heavy use, and even longer when my usage was a bit lighter. In our HD video loop test, the phone ran for little more than 24 hours. Now, the 30-watt fast charging also allows it to charge fully in roughly 65 minutes. Now, coming to the cameras, the setup is very similar to what we saw on the Realme 7. On the back, you get a 64-megapixel primary camera, an 8-megapixel ultra-wide camera, a 2-megapixel macro, and a 2-megapixel monochrome camera. However, the 64-megapixel primary camera this time is manufactured by OmniVision and not Sony like we get on the Realme 7. On the front, you still have a 16-megapixel selfie camera. Now, image quality sadly is weaker than what I experienced with the Realme 7. Landscape shots looked alright on the phone's display, but upon closer inspection, details and textures and objects often appeared a bit flat and not too well defined. The ultra-wide camera also produced even weaker details as expected, with visible barrel distortion along the edges. Close-ups fared much better in terms of detail, but they tended to have a heavily processed look when magnified. Low-light photos generally turned out a bit grainy unless I used nightscape. This also helped to get sort of usable shots with the ultra-wide camera. For close-ups, the autofocus wasn't very accurate in less than ideal light, so at times it did take a few tries to get a good shot. The Realme 8 can record video at up to 4K 30fps but without stabilization. At 1080p, the phone tries to stabilize footage but ends up doing a pretty poor job of it. You can shoot video with the ultra-wide camera too, but the quality is below average and once again there's no stabilization. Selfies shot during the day look decent, but the ones taken in low light were not great. Overall, I would say the cameras on the Realme 8 are definitely serviceable in the right conditions, but this model is definitely not a step up from the Realme 7 in terms of features or even image quality. After spending about a week with the Realme 8, it's safe to conclude that it's nothing more than a Realme 7 with an AMOLED display and slightly worse camera performance. I think the Realme 7 is still a better pick as it offers a 90Hz display and hopefully should receive an Android 11 update soon. Now, the only real advantage of the Realme 8 in my opinion is that it's slimmer and lighter. The top-end variant of the Realme 8 is a much harder sell as the Realme Narzo 30 Pro is available at the same price and offers a more powerful 5G SoC as well as a 120Hz display. As far as alternatives go, you have the Xiaomi Redmi Note 10 Pro, which is better than the Realme 8 in every possible way, at least on paper. Now, the Realme 8 might not have any deal-breaking flaws, but it doesn't really offer anything special either, even when compared to its own siblings, and this makes it kind of hard to recommend. So that's been it for my review of the Realme 8. Let me know what you think about this smartphone in the comments below. And as always, for all things tech, log on to gadgets360.com.